What's one thing you're always willing to pay the extra price for? Bicameralvtech said. Motorcycle helmets. You don't need the most expensive helmet, but you should pay what it takes to get something with a decent certification, SNEL, ES, FIM, and not just IOT. Some technologies like MIPS are also well worth the extra spend. Maybe. Dookie said. Everyone made fun of me when I got my Shoei helmet because of the cost and them saying I don't need it and that I was paying for equipment that was made for racing. Sure enough, a lady pulled out in front of me and I ended up in her backseat. Helmet saved my brain from going mashed potatoes. All my friends have Shoei helmets now. Miraclefish said. I was a motorcycle journalist and tester in the UK for magazines. I got invited to Amsterdam to visit ARA's European research and testing location and to see how the helmets are made, tested and improved. I've personally taken an ARA helmet shell, with nothing inside, and jumped up and down on it sideways and top to bottom. It didn't crack or crush. They also took an ARA helmet and dropped it 3 times one after the other onto a metal ball, with a head weight inside it and lots of G sensors. 3 times that helmet fell 3 meters onto a metal ball and absorbed enough energy to make it a very survivable impact. So did the cheap alternative helmets they let us test it on. The first time. At some angles. I used to buy, and then choose to test, free in return for coverage, ARA and Shoei helmets. After that experience I'd seen firsthand why you pay the extra for a good crash helmet. In my experience, ARA, Shoei, Shark, BMW, Caberg and Nolan X-Slide are among the only ones I'll either trust or I'll recommend. Edit. Someone asked about LS2 and I'll add this as a general recommendation point about cheaper brands. Miraclefish said. Wouldn't be in my first tier of recommendations. There are more budget brand manufactured in China and I've never seen any conclusive testing data on them. They're not dirt cheap like some helmets on eBay where if you open them up they have literally no protection in most places except for the test points used for things like sharp ratings. The issue with saying helmets are impact tested, on a brand new helmet each time, at points X, Y and Z is that manufacturers beef up those areas and put nothing in others, so helmets can be designed to pass a specific test, get an OK rating, but provide no real-world protection in non-controlled conditions. They also don't often test secondary impacts. Edit. By this I don't mean wear a helmet again after a crash. Never do that. I mean that crashes in real life are rarely if ever clean in single impact events. You'll hit your head, maybe bounce and hit it again, scrape along the tarmac, maybe hit a curb, car or road furniture, maybe your bike hits you. Those are the secondary impacts your helmet needs to survive. Once the polished iron inner liner has compressed it turns hard and is compressed thin, so a second impact doesn't get mitigated much if at all, passing far more of the energy into the head. Liren said. I remember being a little kid and sulking that I had to wear jeans and a heavy denim jacket on the motorcycle in summer when it was really hot. Then one day while alone my stepdad got knocked off and shredded through the elbow of his leather jacket. The leather went instead of his flesh, so there was only a wee bit of scrape on the skin, rather than down to the fucking bone. I didn't complain after that. Ada, the helmet made sense and I always wore it without pouting XD. Blue Goblin said. Like computer. It's not obvious, lots of people don't realize this. If you buy a nice computer, like a gaming computer, and you buy a separate monitor for it, go the extra mile and get a good monitor. Why? Monitors usually last, if you take care of them, for 2-3 actual computers' lifetimes. You may replace your computer every couple years, or even after 5-6 years, but your monitor you'll probably use for a decade, especially if it's a really nice one. I paid as much for my current monitor as the entire gaming computer behind it. I've had it for about 5 years and will probably keep it another decade. My mom still uses a 40-inch TV I bought over a decade ago and that thing has 0 dead pixels. I'm still amazed by it. Toshiba. Synod said. I buy $200 work boots that last me about 2 comfortable years whereas my dad used to buy cheap $50 80 boots that would only last 6 months before it's busted up. Not only that, his feet are covered in thick and hard calluses that cause him constant pain while my feet are still soft. Thankfully his working years are over because I never got my point across to him to spend more on quality work boots. Edit. I only buy steel blue boots now. They are an Australian brand, so I'm not sure if you can get them overseas. Trappist1G Sucks said, I flew out of an airport that I had to take a Greyhound bus to, instead of the local one. That bus left at 5 a.m., and my flight wasn't until 1 p.m. My itinerary is Oregon, Wisconsin, but they decided to have me overnight in Dallas for God knows what reason. I have a tough time sleeping on planes and in airports, so I'm effectively spending 2 whole days traveling, and 0 of those hours sleeping. If I had paid a little more, I would have had a single-day trip from the local airport, without starting at an obnoxiously early hour, and without flying south only to fly back north. Y2K was an inside job said I used to be fairly hardcore about getting the best deals, but I've grown out of it for the most part. I will say there are some exceptions. For example, I booked a one-way from Denver to San Salvador, intending to fly home in northern Mexico, for $100. I had a red-eye from Denver to FT Lauderdale and then an 8-hour layover before my next leg to San Salvador on Spirit. Not the most comfortable sleeping in the airport, but manageable. The best option was flying United via Houston, but it was an absurd $500 $600 for a one-way ticket. That being said, especially with international flights, if you're willing to tough out some bullshit and shittier airlines, you can often save hundreds of dollars, which is a big deal for lower earners like me. G8KPR said, we had an issue in our house, where the pipes would occasionally do a loud bang and then no hot water for 20 minutes to 4 hours, until another bang and it came back. We called the water heater guy, as that's what I figured was wrong. He walks in, looked at our water heater and said, nope, not the water heater, I can tell from here that it's fine, that is some other issue. Best you call a plumber. Called one plumber, who wasn't sure, but replaced a valve that was a bit leaky and hoped for the best. Didn't help. Called a second plumber, and I was able to recreate the issue with him. He said that's got to be the hot water tank, probably a valve issue. Called the water tank guys back, new guy came out, I explained it, and without even looking at the tank, he told me what's wrong and what he had to do to fix it. Fixed a bad valve, and we never had an issue since. First guy should be fired. His cocky attitude cost me 2 plumbers. Zcat21 said, plumbers are the only tradesmen where I can have 3 of them look at a problem and have all 3 of them give completely different answers for what should be done. Also, expensive contractor doesn't always mean good. Plenty of expensive contractors who don't supervise the work or farm out to shitty people. Sometimes the less expensive guys are actually better because the guy you're talking to is the guy who will do the work. Las Ruas said, a really good quality winter coat or jacket. To me, it's definitely worth the investment if you live in a country that gets cold winters. Here in Ireland it doesn't snow much in winter due to us being a small island, but we get very cold winters and very wet ones, so you get really cold rain. Paying extra for a really good quality, warm and waterproof coat makes such a difference if you're out and about a lot like I am. It pays for itself because it can last 2 years. I'm due a new one this year. Got 5 years out of my last one and it's still good, but I've lost a significant amount of weight this past year and it's much too big for me now. Intershoe said, funny thing is for me, 18 years ago I walked into a thrift surplus store and purchased a legitimate wool Swiss Army surplus trench coat. And still use it regularly in the winter. It's warm as hell, has a few rips, but holds up really well for the age, and although it can get heavy if it gets really wet, doesn't really absorb moisture well, so even in terrible winter storms I stay dry. I don't think I could use any other coat at this point. I've had it over half my life and used it every single winter since I bought it. And the funny part is, I paid $13 for it. Saltwater Oak said, I got informed about Arc'teryx when I had no business spending that much money, and it was one of the best purchases I've ever made. I didn't think there could be that much of a difference. Only thing that comes close for me is a North Face combination. I have a thick but flexible rain shell, 550 fill-down vest, Denali fleece zip-up and Denali vest, and lightweight fleece pullover, Canyon something, and mix and match depending on temp and activity, and that's worked out very well. I can be specific about exactly what I need, so never too hot, never too cold, never too wet. Also a valuable option. JJ Hook said, oh yes. Definitely. I moved to a building, 7th floor, no elevator. Told my girlfriend I am not moving by myself. So we got a van and 2 movers. All we had to do is be there. I helped of course with the carrying, but within an hour we were done. Everything was in her apartment. Gave them a super nice tip which they loved, and I felt good afterwards knowing I didn't have to break my back or worry about 5-6 trips myself. Court Clark Music said, I live in Mexico. The national cinema chain, Cinépolis, often has 2 whole movie houses in each location. One is your standard, run-of-the-mill movie theater with 30 rows of stadium seating, while the other theater is Cinépolis VIP, which features reclining leather seats, USB charging ports, heated seats, around 30 seats total, and table service, food and alcohol. Reminds me of Alamo Drafthouse cinemas in the USA, but these are nicer in my opinion. Husband and I always pay the extra pesos for the VIP theater for comfort, plus there are rarely issues with other patrons who also pay for the VIP theater, quiet people who really want to see the movie and won't be chatting or constantly getting out of their seats through the entire movie. The price difference between the 2 theaters really isn't that much, so it's a small thing we always pay for. Quadruple Negative 87 said, Tools, if you are earning a living with them, you want something totally reliable and is not going to break and work properly every time. They say a cheap man pays twice as much in the long run. I bought up a set of Ryobi power tools for work and for DIY at home. They are pretty good. But, when I was on site and found the batteries take 3 hours to charge. I don't have that kind of time. Also, the hammer drill didn't always hammer. I'm a Milwaukee boy now and I am completely satisfied. TLDR, always buy the best that you can afford. Jerhon said, once you leave the sub $50 range, it gets easier. Studio headphones will get you closer, even cheap ones. Feel like I hit a gold mine with my MH310S. They went on sale for $30 on Musician's Friend's stupid deal of the day, normally $70. I game with them. They have the right part to clip my track IR, head tracker for flight simulators, into, and sound pretty damn good. As good as Sennheiser headphones? No. They're not in the same price class. But for under $100, fantastic. For any headphone, very usable. They're very similar in appearance to AKG K270S, which had a great reputation as a budget studio headphone that is getting tarnished by newer build quality. Wish mine had a detachable cord though. My chair has been chewing it up. My cat, too. Pork Sword Fight said, Hobby Supplies. Every hobby I've ever tried has some real dog shit entry-level gear that most people either buy and grow out of really fast or don't realize their potential particularly quickly and lose interest. However, if you buy rent-quality mid-tier stuff to start out, you end up with a much better experience overall and progress much faster and get a truer reflection of the hobby. This is true for musical instruments, archery, longboarding, sailing, fishing, painting, brewing, gaming. Paw Inspector said, my niece just turned 18. Said she was going to get a tattoo tomorrow. I said, really? Where? She said she didn't know. Anywhere she could get it done that same day. I say pretty much anywhere you go where you can get the tattoo you want the same day isn't going to give you one you'll be really happy with. She says she doesn't care. Just really wants one. I say, you'll have it forever. What's a few days? Then I said, I'll tell you what. Why don't you look through the tons of artists in the city's books and find one whose work you really love? I'll take you, and I'll even pay for you to get it as a birthday present. Then she said no, that's fine, she's already waited long enough. Guess who has a mediocre tattoo of a very standard design on her forearm now? Stingincher said, the man who did my first tattoo clearly did not like me. Not sure why, really don't care all that much, because his work was flawless. And I knew that going in. Charged me $400 for a 2-hour session, and said probably 7 words to me, but I've had the tattoo for 10 years now and have almost zero fading, lines are clean as they can get, and I got exactly what I wanted. I'm willing to pay through the nose, and let you treat me poorly if you have the skill set I am looking for. I never have to see the artist again, but I'll have to see the tattoo every day. Montague 10 said, my time. I used to always try to save money while traveling until I realized I was wasting hours and adding stress to my life. Sure, the bus is $100 cheaper but it's 3 hours longer, doesn't leave when or from where you want, and is a miserable ride. Pay for the flight. I've seen this shift with little things too, splurging for an Uber if it's make my trip simpler, or even paying to have something done in my apartment building. We have laundry and cleaning services, if I'm stressing about getting it done. It's nice to save money, but not at the cost of being a miserable ball of stress. Edit. I just eventually came to view stress and wasted time as a cost, even if it doesn't necessarily show up on my balance sheet. Crewchief0206 said, "This goes with so many things in life. Saving money is great, but you can't take it with you when you're dead, and many people who inherit money don't invest it, they use it almost right away. Not all, but a lot. I think like you do. I like to save money, but sometimes my time is more important. I own a home and have a guy that comes by every other week to mow the lawn. I own a push mower. He uses a zero-turn riding mower. He literally gets the entire yard done, with weed whacking, in about 35-45 minutes. It takes me a few hours in a Saturday or Sunday to do it. It's completely worth the money to me since I work 40-50 hours a week and would rather spend that time with my son since I don't see them often during the week." ABC 5233 said, "If you are going to the beach or other vacation destination, splurge for the cheapest room in the best hotel. Many times the hotel is the actual destination, and amenities are the same for all guests. If you are going to a foreign city or tourist spot, is the rule of real estate: location, location, location. Staying where the action is makes all the difference. The first time I went to Paris, I stayed in a cheap hotel in the outskirts. It took 30 minutes of subway to get to Notre Dame. Last time, I stayed in a small hotel. My room barely fit a double bed, just across Notre Dame, 1 block from Châtelet subway station. It was a completely different experience. For starters, you never leave the magic sensation of the place. Next, you can use your hotel as a center of operations. Need to go to the bathroom? A quick nap, rest in the middle of the day? Quick shower, change of clothes? Recharge phones? Forgot something? Everything is a convenient stop away, and the trip is so much better. You can start your day earlier and finish it later, without draining yourself, and you don't spend hours in transportation. Same with Disney, always stay on site. Now I always plan my trips checking the places I will go, then choose an hotel right in the middle of it all, and pay for the cheapest room there, after checking for cleanliness, safety. In Las Vegas, the Travelodge has a great location price, but the place is nasty. Better stay at Flamingos Bally's, very cheap, right in front of the Bellagio fountains at the center of the strip." Blood Splinter said, "I shit you not. Had a short trip once. Learn that a journey is all about the friend that you bring. You bring shitty friend, you get the shitty holiday. Brought a somewhat stingy friend. Everything is monetary for him. Even the basic stuff. And always picky even when it's slightly higher price. Instead of riding the cable car, decided to hike instead. Not even halfway and we all already out of breath and cancel the hike. Wanna eat tasty food, but don't wanna pay a cent higher. So we went to a local restaurant with not even a proper lighting. We ate outside under gloomy moonlight, with smoke from the grill blew to our face. Wanna go shopping, but he check and compare every item with online prices. Even a single cent higher will not buy it. He went out of the mall empty-handed." Blood Splinter said, "Edit, to further elaborate on the hiking things. We were all in jeans, short-sleeve polo shirts with only slippers, Crocs, no socks on. This hiking place is in Southeast Asian. The sun was almost at the top of our head when we start the hike. With no proper gear and shit. This guy just go, meh, the cable car is too expensive. Let's just hike instead. Period. Mind you, the cost for the cable car is RM50, it's Malaysia, so it's around $11.80, including the return trip. There are 2 mountain peak. The cable car go through one peak and then on towards another. We were on the first peak, and the guy was convinced we can hike all the way to the second peak. Just to save money. Edit 2, regarding the shopping things, we were at a mall that mostly sells chocolates that you rarely can find elsewhere, and it's all tax-free. It's literally the best place to buy souvenirs and snacks to your friends back home. But he decided that it's better to buy online and give that to his friends instead. I understand on the mentality about that, it was his money. He decided on what he want to spend on. But he was hovering behind me like, oh, you wanna buy that? It's 20 cents cheaper online though at every few minutes we spend there. Dark Helmet 16 said, this was most likely not food poisoning, but rather due to eating too much of what sushi restaurants often call super white tuna, escalar. The escalar's wax ester content can cause chyriarchia, Greek, flow of wax, gymphalotoxism or gympulid fish poisoning. 6. Symptoms range from stomach cramps to rapid loose bowel movements, occurring 30 minutes to 36 hours following consumption. 7. This condition may also be referred to as steatorrhea. 2 known ways to reduce the likelihood of escalar-induced chyriarchia are to limit portions to 170 grams, 6 Oz, or less 8, and to consume portions close to the tail, which typically have a lower wax ester content. Reports conflict on whether deep skinning, freezing or grilling will reduce the likelihood of chyriarchia. Throwaway Day 24601 said, we get our maple syrup from a World War II veteran in his mid-90s. He taps maple trees in the hearts of everyone who knows him. He lives in a small cabin on the way to my lake house, in the rural north. He is known among people as the best maple syrup guy. It's his passion in life, to cultivate maple syrup and maple products. He's been doing it since the 1950s. Last time I was there he'd recently had a quadruple bypass, showed us the scar. He was like, I thought I was a goner, but I guess it wasn't my time yet. He's also refused to be a sellout, and does it for love. It is expensive, but still about 1/2 of the cost of buying pure maple from a specialty store. He also has a box where, if he's not around, you can just take the product and leave cash or a check, and trusts people not to rip them off. That was a tangent. But he is so cool I couldn't help it. Update, after I posted this I called my mom and asked about him. He passed recently. He was close to 100. He knew he had a bad heart. Last December, one day he didn't come inside at dinner time. His wife found him in his maple syrup processing barn, laying there. But his wife and son are trying to make it again. There is also a beautiful memorial for him. Twitchy Taco said, I just cut my own hair now. It's free and it looks like I want it to look about 90% of the time. I'll give myself a shitty haircut every once in a while, but typically my hair looks fine. I got tired of people fucking up my curly hair. I almost always had a bad haircut because for some bizarre ass reason people in cosmetology school aren't taught how to cut textured or curly hair. I did some research, bought a decent set of clippers, and hacked away. It actually ended up not being half bad, but then I got better. I'm very happy with my hair now. Cutting my own hair also really came in handy when COVID struck and closed down all the salons and barbershops in California for a year. I was always well groomed throughout lockdown. I don't want to ever pay for another haircut again. Visual Celery said, off-street parking at my building. Before UPSHHH, I know it sounds ridiculous because in a lot of areas this is always included with your rent, because everyone has a car and you need a place to park. I live in a city where a car can be convenient but not necessarily required for everyday commuter errands, and buildings only have room for so many cars on their property. Most people just park on the street if they have a car. Anyway, my spot is $175 a month, and the peace of mind knowing that no matter how late I come home, no matter what weather we're having, I always have a space that I can park in near the building. I do look forward to one day living somewhere where this isn't a thing, either because all apartments come with an assigned space automatically, or because we have a house with a driveway. Someday. Santa said, expensive gear has great resale value, though. While a nice Epiphone guitar may do the trick, and I am sure it is more important to work on improving your skills rather than your gear, it loses value quicker than a nice Gibson guitar. Where I live instruments are very expensive, mostly imported, and a Gibson guitar will go for about 10 to 15 monthly minimum wages at the lower end. But one you buy for $3,000 USD can easily be sold for $2,800 after a few years if you take proper care of it. The same cannot be said for cheaper guitars. I do the same math with instruments that I use for cars. The price you pay minus the resale value is the actual cost of the instrument. So sometimes, and if you can spend the extra bucks, it may be cheaper or just as cheap to buy a good guitar instead of an entry-level one. Ambitious Struggle 41 said, proper care for my smaller animals, For example, a lot of people refuse to buy bigger tanks for their lizards BC they're just lizards that don't need that much room and it costs too much, not knowing that they're giving their pets something that they can barely turn around in. A lot of people get their bearded dragons a 40-gallon tank, but those are 36 x 18 inches while bearded dragons can get up to 24 inches long and can't comfortable live in an 18 inches enclosure. People do the same thing with fish. They'll put fish that need at least 10 gallons in a 1-gallon tank just BC they're small enough to fit in there. Worst part is if you tell someone their care is wrong, no matter how nice you were about it, they'll get mad at you. Beauty66 said, I remember marveling at all the things I never even paid attention to prior. The tactile feel of the buttons and switches, the stitching on the leather, the way the glove box opened slowly and shut with a soft push, the feel of the steering wheel in my hands and the response through the wheel feeling as if it was attached directly to the road. Today it is probably not as apparent, but there was a huge divide between us manufactured cars and those from Europe. I got hooked when an adult drove me in his BMW Bavaria, and an uncle of mine had a Fiat with rack and pinion steering. 2 years ago I went from my last Porsche to a Volvo sedan. It was sort of admitting that a beautifully designed interior and audio system cradled my old ass in a more satisfying way than ripping through curves. Autowrecker said, My dog got a tumor. The removal price was about $5K. The day of surgery she got bloat, torsion, damn the luck and timing, and the vet was slow walking me through the price and risks. Another $5K. While I'm a pretty optimistic guy, I knew the question of putting her to sleep would be coming, and I knew I couldn't. I couldn't spend this kind of money on myself, but I couldn't not for her. I heard myself say, my credit card is in hand, what are we waiting for? She's almost 13, I'm basically unemployed and we're about $14K deep, but she's the fucking toughest dog I've ever seen and I would have paid that just for one more day. She's a little weak but she's healing nicely. Clueless Wolfkin said, Ever since I was a wee lad my mom always got Toyota and these babies run for miles on end. I myself have transitioned to Toyota as well solely because I was going to college so I needed something that would just last me the commute till I got a career and could get something else. Albeit I do not enjoy it in the snow though. Snowfall in my state is absolute dog poop but thankfully corporations have been doing their part so it doesn't snow as much anymore or as long too. So that's somewhat good and terrifyingly bad.